Hello, everyone. Ex-Wallkill Bethelite here, and we're going to be enjoying experiences from different Bethelites. I've noticed at least two other former Bethelites making videos, and it's just good to mention for people that aren't as familiar with Bethel that the term Bethel refers to several different facilities. So you have one in Brooklyn, or you used to have one in Brooklyn, then you have one in Wallkill, New York, and then you have one in Patterson, New York. Now you have one in Warwick. So it's almost like using the word Walmart. When someone says they ran out of cereal at Walmart, and then someone else says, well, they had plenty of cereal at Walmart. Well, we have to take into consideration that if they're talking about a Walmart that was 2 hours away from a different Walmart, that's how that's possible. You're talking about two completely different buildings. It's like if, for example, the word school can be used and is used to refer to completely different facilities. Now, the same things go on in schools. They got the yellow buses, they have books, they have teachers, they have students. They all start about the same time. A lot of them conclude around about the same time. There are a lot of similarities with the word, a building called a school. However, if someone experiences a school shooting, for example, and they share their experience about that school shooting, well, if someone else then shares an experience and says, well, they have never experienced, they go to school and they've never experienced a shooting. As a matter of fact, they didn't even hear gunshots. See? As a matter of fact, people don't even throw paper. It's the furthest thing from school shooting as there is. Well, that could confuse people because they may think you're talking about the same school. But in fact, if you're talking about a school 2 hours away from, that's your school, 2 hours away from the school that had that shooting, then yeah, that would be why you didn't hear the shots. Or you didn't have a shooting because you're talking about your school. So when we're hearing Bethel experiences, Bethel is kind of like the word school, referring to different buildings. Wallkill, Watchtower Farm, is about 2 hours away from Brooklyn. So they're both called Bethel, but they're different. They're hours away from each other. So I just want to make sure that as we enjoy our experiences and share our experiences for people that aren't as familiar with the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses, when they hear one person talking about Bethel and it sounds completely different from another person talking about Bethel, the word Bethel, so everyone that's not as familiar knows, is similar to just saying the word school. Now, if they say Brooklyn, they're talking about the specific place where they were. Patterson, the specific place where they were. So there will be similarities with different Bethels, just like there's similarities with different schools. But they're not going to be identical if they're 2 hours away from each other. So just keep that in mind as we enjoy all the Bethel experiences. And that kind of leads me to my point that I wanted to discuss. is that while it's good that some people have good experiences with Bethel and or with Jehovah's Witnesses, I'm sure there's probably people that have not been molested, while there are people that have been molested. So a person that comes out and says, well, I was never molested, well, that's good. That's very good. There's still people that were molested. So really, when you think about Jehovah's Witnesses and some of the experiences and the perception of those experiences, Bethelites, just people at the local congregations, sometimes people have a low standard, a low expectation. For example, I know someone who had witnesses come to their house and help them fix a couple things around the house. And that's good. But we also have to take into consideration no one hardly ever comes over. And that for by and large, Jehovah's Witnesses don't visit each other. So someone coming over your house to help fix things is good, but it doesn't put the organization above anybody else. It's what are you comparing the organization to when we're discussing these good experiences as something exemplary? For example, at Bethel, people that were invited over to their congregation, and their congregation had a meal for them. That's great. However, there's plenty of people that go over other people's houses and have a meal. I've been to churches where they had barbecues. They had food for everybody before the service. And it was a large church. And this is every Sunday. I'd gone over some church members' homes and had meals. So when a Jehovah's Witness says, I went over another brother or sister's house and we had a meal, that doesn't put the organization above anyone, because that's what they say, right? Watchtower is the one and only true organization. It's like Jehovah's Witnesses have such low standards for what they are impressed by in regards to the organization. Any little thing impresses them. I remember being at an assembly, and you have brothers sitting around where the speaker is, watching. And a different brother came over and tapped the brother on the shoulder to take his spot, and then the other brother walked off as the other brother sits down to take a shift or a watch, so to speak. And I remember a person sitting next to me was so impressed. Look at Jehovah's organization. Wow. All they did was switch shifts. That's it. But they were so impressed. And I think sometimes people want it to be the truth so bad that they look for any little thing to impress them. For example, the preaching work. Jehovah's Witnesses call their door knocking the worldwide preaching work. Now, this is the preaching work in comparison to what? Going around knocking on doors and no one answering oftentimes, or not getting the favorable response oftentimes, and having a cart with literature on it, standing next to that cart and just standing there like a statue while everybody walks by. This is the great worldwide preaching work that everybody's so... This must be the one true organization, because we have people standing next to carts. Or we have people that went around a block and knocked on the doors of people who were already Christian. Matter of fact, their church gathered a lot more sheep than Watchtower has. But yet for Jehovah's Witnesses, their mindset is we must be impressed by any little thing. Watchtower does. So if we knock on doors, it's the preaching work. I've heard people say after a meeting, after a public talk, oh man, that was a fine talk. That was such a good talk. When half the congregation was asleep. Like, no, it wasn't. The talk was horrible. The person had no real skills. He just stood there and just talked about stuff that is just very, very surface and basic, elementary, and not to mention inaccurate. But man, that talk was great. Wow. You have so many instances of people being overly impressed by small, little, minute things in Watchtower. Somebody giving a comment, man, that was a good comment. All they did was read it right out of the paragraph, and it wasn't even that deep. You see the pattern here. I would love to know why we were like that, because that includes myself. I would like to know why we were like that. When I would watch the older theocratic videos, I would think, wow. When in reality, they weren't that good. The little theocratic videos that used to come out, the acting was horrible. Animation was terrible. They weren't that good. But I was super impressed. Super impressed by them at the time. And I think part of people being overly impressed can be explained by being sheltered. You know, so if you've only had cornbread to eat and dry biscuits, well, a carrot will taste like the best thing on earth. All you're allowed to have is cornbread and dried up biscuits. Well, somebody hands you a carrot. Man, that is amazing. Oh, wow, I'm so appreciative. Wow, unbelievable. The standard is so low, especially for people that are born in, people that have come from different churches. And then they step foot into a kingdom hall and they see how small it is and how relatively unimpressive it is. in comparison to other church structures. And again, this is interesting because Jehovah's Witnesses brag all day about their religion. And there isn't much to brag about, but they're so impressed. They're so impressed. They call it the truth. This is one of the biggest contradictions you will ever see in a religion. Now, this may be common in cults, but Jehovah's Witnesses call their teachings the truth. The problem is that even most Jehovah's Witnesses know that there's been flip-flops in doctrine. The whole 1914 overlapping generations is a flip-flop from the generation of 1914. Won't pass away. They won't die before you see the end of this system. And it's not like Jehovah's Witnesses, you just correct things, ahead of time. They correct it when it's so obviously wrong that they have to. They got to think up something else now. And they call it the truth. Oh, it's the truth. I remember my stepdad it just rolled off his lips. It's truth. You know what I mean? And it's like, you knew about 1975, but you're so impressed by the quote unquote accuracy of a religion that is probably the most inaccurate and openly inaccurate. Like, they flat out gotten things wrong. I know Watchtower thinks that other religions, or Jehovah's Witnesses think that other religions have inaccurate doctrine. But that's just their opinion. The actual church hadn't flip-flopped on doctrine and flat out said, yeah, we got that wrong, we got to change that. You don't see that as much. But Jehovah's Witnesses, man, the people back in the day wouldn't recognize the religion now because they got so much wrong and they had to make so many changes. And yet they call it the truth. And not only do they call it the truth, they're just impressed by it. They are impressed by a doctrine that is constantly wrong and having to be fixed. You're impressed by it in comparison to what? Church. Are you comparing your constant incorrect doctrine to and saying that this is something to be proud of, that this is reason for it to be the truth or the one true organization? What reason at all do they have to call it the one true organization? I just remember so many times growing up, people being impressed, and sometimes it's really sad because I know somebody that I just know I grew up in it, so I know a lot of people. I know somebody that didn't have his father around, and I think that they are impressed by the religion, not because the teachings are necessarily that accurate, and they really, really want it to be the truth because those were the only men that he really grew up around. He's just impressed by it simply because there were men around, and he didn't really have his father growing up. That's a really low expectation. Any church has got men around. Most of them will have some men around. So for Jehovah's Witnesses, I would love to know, not just Jehovah's Witnesses, 937-789-4029. Let me know It's good if you had good experiences with Watchtower, because we don't want anybody to be molested. We don't want anybody's wife to have gotten beaten. It's bad enough it's happened to some people. It's good it hadn't happened to everybody. However, if you're saying the polar opposite, that your experience was great in comparison to what? Bethel isn't great in comparison to a government job. Because we had fried chicken, and the chicken went around the table at least once and would get sent out and come back with just a couple pieces left, because that's all that was left. Other people go to KFC. This is Jehovah's organization, and we're so impressed by it. People go to Bethel and they're so impressed. Wow. But in quote unquote Satan's organization, people go to KFC. They go to Popeye's chicken. They go to Church's chicken, and they get however much chicken they want. They're not sitting up there at Popeye's chicken happy because they got sides. Like Popeyes ain't got no chicken, but we're just all happy because we're going to get some side dishes. We're going to get some okra. I mean, it's just in general, the expectation for Church's chicken, Popeye's chicken, is that they're going to have enough chicken for you to order however much you want. And this is the quote unquote world, evil world, bad Satan world. There's people that I've spoken to that enjoyed Bethel just traveling to a different place. And that's good that people have good experiences, but this is not really something amazing about Watchtower, because people travel. I know people that aren't JW that travel out the country, let alone traveling from Omaha to New York and just being so happy to see New York. That's great. But there's people that can go to New York anytime they want. There's people that can go to the Bahamas. There's people that can go all over the place. There's definitely going to be differences when we talk about our Bethel experiences between Brooklyn and Walk Hill, in the sense that Brooklyn, you go outside of your facility and you have all kinds of restaurants and stores, and you got the whole city at your fingertips. Whereas at Walk Hill, you go outside, at Watchtower Farm, you go outside and you got land, and Watchtower owns it all. You kind of need a car just to get to a city type area. Do some shopping there. People's experiences are going to be different because some people's family had money and they sent them all kinds of money, so that maybe people at Brooklyn could have gone out and bought food and different things like that. I know that at Walk Hill, at Watchtower Farm, there were people that had all kinds of nice things in their room. Some people had it better than others. The experiences are going to be different with Watchtower. But that little room that is the size of a hotel, just because a person had a radio in it and a TV, that doesn't put Watchtower far above the quote unquote Satan ran world, where people have whole houses or people have whole apartments with that same stuff in it. People have things better. Jehovah God should be able to do better than Satan. So if the organization is ran by Jehovah, everything outside of it is ran by Satan. Satan shouldn't be able to do so much better. All his churches, when they preach, they bring in a lot more people. When his people goes to work, quote unquote Satan, they get paid for it. And they can buy as much food as they want. Travel if they want. When Jehovah's people go to work, unless they're working for Satan, since, God can't provide for them. So when they go work for Watchtower, they got to work for free. Jehovah can't afford to pay his people. I don't see what there is in Watchtower to be super impressed by. Comment down below. We'll discuss it. One thing about being out of the organization is everybody can have a different experience. Everybody can have a different opinion. And that's okay. There's total freedom to have any opinion you want to have. That's the beauty of being free now. So it's completely okay to disagree. I've got JW friends or ex-JW friends, and we still work on that. Where if we have a disagreement, we got to realize it's not the end of the world, because it's normal. It's okay to disagree on something. So let's comment down below. What is there about Watchtower at all to be impressed by? And do you think that Jehovah's Witnesses have extremely low standard for Watchtower? I mean, you have Australian Royal Commission, you have pedophilia, you have all kinds of things going on, and it's just okay. No big deal. Jehovah will take care of it. But this church over here has it going on, and see, that's Babylon the Great. See, when it's happened to us, Jehovah takes care of it. When we have pedophiles, but when they have pedophiles, it's Satan. It just doesn't. It's having such a low expectation for Watchtower that's supposed to be ran by Jehovah, and having such a high expectation for everything outside of Watchtower that's supposed to be ran by Satan. It's almost like Jehovah's Witnesses are flat out saying that Satan is more powerful than Jehovah. So I'm about to go for my jog here. You guys comment down below. Let me know what you think. Ex-Wall Kill Bethelite signing out.